Hello, everyone. This is Rick, and welcome to Astral Club. This is Astral Outtakes. Before we get started, just want to mention Patreon. If you'd like to support the channel, you get no commercials. You get your videos in advance on Sunday. And of course, there's an email where we can talk back and forth, and I can answer questions, and you can tell me about your experiences. And if you're interested in supporting the channel, you'll find a link in the description. Secondly, private lessons if you'd like to learn to astral project, or if you'd like to improve your quantity and quality of projections, I'd be glad to offer a private customized lesson. And if you're interested in more information, you'll find an email in the description where you can request supplementary information about that lesson. Astral Outtakes. It concerns me sometimes, not really with the long-term supporters of this channel, but especially with, I'm getting a lot of newer people who've been finding the channel within the last couple of months or so. And I'm concerned that perhaps they'll think that some of these projections that I've had are typical of my projections or are typical of other people's projections, especially when they're just starting out. When we watch TV shows or movies, we see the results of days, weeks, months, in some cases years, of a lot of film that was made. And it looks like the actors hit everything perfectly. The perfect lyrics, no stammers. They got everything right. However, I think anyone who's seen bloopers or seen outtakes of TV shows and movies realizes that they didn't all go perfectly. There was many mistakes and errors that the actors or the scenery made, such that they had to reshoot that scene, sometimes numerous times, tens, hundreds of times, until the director was satisfied with the final result. So what you see, what I see, is the final result. The creme de la creme, the absolute summit of the movie maker or the TV show maker's efforts. But, and just like, with me, you're getting what I consider the experiences that are worth retelling, that are valuable for a variety of astral projection and spiritual reasons. But what I want to discuss here is just to put things in perspective and share with you the hundreds, thousands of projections I've had that I've never talked about because, quite frankly, they weren't interesting. They were a blooper. They were an outtake. But I wanted to discuss them now briefly in this particular episode, just so that people can understand that when they begin projecting, they shouldn't necessarily think, oh, I'm a failure because my first projection isn't like Rick's, when he goes to this place or that time or what have you, that you understand that I go through the same process. I've gotten better over the decades, but I still have the same astral failures as anyone else out there. Let's start with my trips as a kid. Now, I still have fading yellow school tablets going back, to pretty much when I mastered writing. And I would keep these journals from time to time. I didn't always keep them up, but I would indicate my experiences. And as I read through them many years later, when I dug them up, these trips that seemed so cool to me seem very pedantic and dull. For instance, looking at some of my tablets, I see that my most common experiences were leaving my body and flying around my backwoods or flying down to the local schoolyard. And the ultimate treat was actually going into the school at night and walking around. For some reason, I thought that was just the coolest thing, seeing this building, which when I was awake in the daytime, generally I was at school and it was busy and there was all these people, and here I am now inside this building and it's empty. I know that doesn't sound too interesting, but it was vastly interesting to 7 and 8 year old Rick. My biggest treat was eventually just being able to fly around my side of town and just kind of looking down on it from the sky. That's one particular example. Another example, and this happens to this day, sometimes, especially after I've had some intense experiences, I just like flying around in the night sky. Recently, I was flying with my back to to the land. So I was looking up in the sky and just sailing along, looking up at the waning moon. And then I decided I wanted to focus in on the moon, and I could see the minute details as I focused in on the moon. And that was a trip. It was beautiful, it was calming, but it was also, I mean, pretty boring from an outsider's standpoint. Another one is I'll be looking down at the land and looking at these lit up cities in the lower astral as I fly above them. It's a beautiful experience. It's even a little bit of a spiritual experience if you think about it. But try and tell somebody about that experience. You're flying in the dark and you're looking down on the city. It's great for me, but it's not. I don't think it's so great for somebody who's listening to it because it's just not endlessly fascinating because it's fairly simple. But I think it's important that once again, this is a typical experience that I might have. Flying into space, you hear the ones that were successful. But I can't tell you how many times that I started flying towards a particular point in the sky. Maybe I picked a star. And I got pulled back. Even before I lost consciousness, I got pulled back to my body. Sometimes I'll head to a particular place in the sky. If I'll pick out a star or something, even a planet in our solar system, and I'll start heading there and lose consciousness, and then I end up going back to my body and waking up in my body, never having got to that star or the planet that I wanted to visit. Time travel. You've listened to some of my very interesting, I think at least, time trips where I saw possible futures. But, there's also a significant percentage of my attempts at time travel that didn't succeed for a variety of reasons. When I fly in the sky and I want to do a time trip, I'll fly faster and faster, keeping in mind with my will highly focused on one particular time period and to the exclusion of all other thoughts. And sometimes a time channel will open up in the sky. I'll see time kind of being stretched, like you can kind of see the side scenery being stretched. And then I'll fly down that channel. Many times, though, the channel doesn't appear. So for whatever reason, something didn't go right. Maybe it was impossible to get to that time from where we are now. I've noticed that happens at times. There's certain time periods you can't get to. Much like that dimensional trip when I went to Robert Monroe's world or parallel dimension where they didn't have electricity anymore. Everything was steam powered. I tried for 40 years off and on to get there and failed because my theory is that particular plane was out of conjunction with ours. So you just couldn't get there from here. but that resulted in many abortive trips as well. And I suspect some of those time trips might be, they might have failed because of a lack of ability to travel to that particular time, because maybe that particular time was out of alignment or out of conjunction with ours. Or who knows? The projections fail for any number of reasons that you can't always nail down. Sometimes your body just wants you back. And I can tell you how many times I have projected and some sort of a stray sound brought me back prematurely. I usually live in areas where there's a good amount of silence because I don't want to be disturbed when I'm projecting. But no one can be absolutely certain that there will never be any disturbing noises because we live in a chaotic world. And so some things just can't be controlled. I recall when I was living near Philadelphia, and sometimes I'd want to travel to my parents' home, and I would decide to fly there, in the night sky. I would follow the turnpike, the Pennsylvania Turnpike, which was an easy way to get up to the area where my parents lived. And sometimes it was successful. Other times I would end up being pulled back to my body before I had gotten to my parents' home. So I just wanted to share some of these not so interesting experiences with you so that you realize, if you've projected already and you're still pretty new, or if you're looking to have your first experience. If you've listened to my videos, you can avoid many of the failures that I experienced when I was younger because I didn't know any better. Like, for instance, anybody who's listened to this channel for any length of time knows that once you get out of your body, you have to try to put as much space between you and your physical body as possible. That the cardinal sin in astral projection is hanging around your bedroom, staring at your body, or looking into some mirror in your bedroom, because you're going to be pulled back fairly quickly into your physical body. But these are just some typical pitfalls that you're going to experience. You're going to have many failed astral projection attempts to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. It's an imperfect process. So I wanted to just share this so that people would know that not all of my experiences are these ground shaking ones. That quite frankly, they're the pearls amongst huge numbers of clams without pearls, or oysters rather, sorry. All you're seeing is me opening up a clam and pulling out one of these, these precious, beautiful pink pearls. But you don't see off camera an enormous 12-foot or 3-meter size pile of empty oyster shells that I cracked open and didn't find any magic pearls inside. That was it. It's pretty much a short podcast. If you liked it, why don't you hit the like button, share it with those of like minds. Subscribe if you haven't already. If you have subscribed, hit that bell so you get notified when I have my videos posted every Wednesday at 2 p.m. and every Saturday at 8:15 a.m. And that's Eastern time, which is, like New York City time. And as always, this is Rick, and I will see you more or less, depending on how the outtake goes, on the astral plane.